Welcome to the Best Music Podcast with Dan Spencer. My name is Dan, and this week's featured guest is Isabella Bedoya. Now, Isabella is the founder of Fame Hackers, which helps music artists attract and monetize their super fans. Isabella is a former A&R for a label under Sony and a digital marketing expert. She has managed marketing activations for major labels, music startups, and Fortune 500 brands, including managing 2 TikTok accounts for Sony. Isabella has been invited to speak at Musicians Institute. Oh, that's cool. iHeartRadio. That's cool. Ticker News. That's cool. Bold TV, NBC, a KCAA, List TV, and the Best Music Podcast, and has been published on multiple publications such as Thrive, Global Medium, and Music Industry Weekly, to name but a few. Isabella has recently been featured in the LA Notes 30 Under 30 in the music industry. Well, that's cool. Isabella, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for this.
You know, I'm also really excited for this too, because I was checking out your website, Fame Hackers, and the testimonials and screenshots you guys have up there is wild, especially something we talk a lot about on this podcast is the current state of the music industry and how difficult it really is to make some money outside of the sync and touring worlds. But you guys clearly have this program where even the freebies you guys give away, people are reporting good results with it. So, Isabella, could you maybe start off with telling me, maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that all music artists who want to make money from what they are doing should start doing today?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I think maybe 2 or 3 things, most importantly, are the first one is you have to understand that it's not just about the music, right? So we get so wrapped up in wanting to just be only playing the songs, but we have to think of musicians and music as a business. So the first important thing is to figure out what is the subjectivity around your music and how can you create some kind of movement around that so that you can then support your audience. Secondly, you don't just want to show up on social media only when you want to promote your new music. You actually have to build a relationship with your audience. And that means, starting organic, starting from not running paid ads and actually kind of shaking people's hands online. And then the most important, the 2 most important things that I learned that I was just if we apply this to music industry and we apply this to independent artists in general, it's going to be a game changer. And it's basically becoming really, really good with social media and social media marketing and becoming really, really good with e-commerce, because it doesn't matter what you sell. It doesn't matter how you sell it. People are going to subscribe to you for what it is that you're actually promoting, your music is actually promoting.
So I think even in your last description of what your music is promoting, that brings us back to the first part, which is a movement. So yes. Is the movement, is that tying in with a charity? Is that making a mission statement as an artist that people can get behind? Is that supporting a cause? What's the move? Lady Gaga had the monsters and everyone was holding up their monster claws. We can argue that was a movement, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, the movement is basically excuse me, the movement is basically if you think about it, when you write music, generally speaking, a lot of the times people are writing either love songs or, party songs or whatever it is. And a lot of the times we hear fans saying, hey, your song saved my life. So if you think about, if your songs are about relationships, then a movement would be pretty much creating a space where you can either lead, a membership club or a weekly discussion about relationships, and you don't have to do it by yourself. You can bring in experts to help you navigate the situations. So now all of a sudden your music, it's not just your music. Your music also has support and additional aspects to it, which start creating a whole culture around you.
So essentially what we're talking about is personal brand building and interfacing that with the music, because in the 21st century, clearly what we have been doing is not working, and what got you to here won't get you to there. And then also the rules of the game have changed so much with, Spotify getting you 0.0007 cents a stream, and there's no money in that per se. There is for like 5 people, like Adele, Bieber, and whoever's hot today. There's some money to be made there. So developing personal brand, creating a community, would that yeah. So you actually have a community on Facebook. You've got some Facebook groups for fame hackers. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe we can learn some lessons from how you structure your business.
Yeah, so as an artist, you have 2 ways to create a community. You can either create a Facebook group or you could create a Discord server, which in music, people tend to opt in for a Discord. Depends on your demographic, because also if you're going for the older crowd, they're gonna be like, Discord, what's that? And then you're gonna lose them. So it really depends on your demographic, but either you build a Discord server or a Facebook group, and then what you do in those groups, you don't necessarily have to blast them with your music all the time. You could talk about, again, like the subject of your music. And for example, there's an artist that we helped with, like, that he does a lot of like mental health kind of stuff. And one of the things that we helped him do was, first of all, create an affirmation download that every time that someone comes into his page, they download an affirmation. Every time they join like his group or server, whatever, they're being constantly reminded about what it is to have like a positive mental health. And, pretty much that is the whole movement behind his music. So that's pretty much what you want to do in the groups. In the groups, you don't want to make it just another place for you to promote your music. It's a place where you can bring people together to build those relationships and build the support systems, and the people that also they get to interact with each other. And like you said, Daniel, you said Lady Gaga created the Little Monsters, right? She even has a quote that says, "A fan falls out a fan, but a little monster is a lifestyle." And that's exactly what you have to think about your fans. Like, how can you make your music a lifestyle?
That's huge. And I think that leaves a lot of area for creative people to be creative in how they're going to do that, because the options are, I'm not going to sit here and have you give away the farm and list all the ways that you want. Obviously, everyone go check out famehackers.com, if only to get the freebies and also to check out the ridiculous results you guys have been getting in terms of people monetizing their music, which we will get to. So create a movement, create a lifestyle, be a brand, create a movement. Then you talked about social presence, and I think that sort of goes into what you were talking about in terms of how you're running your Discord and how you're running your Facebook group, that it's not just promotion, that there's, here's a fun music meme, here's some, whatever the culture that you're trying to build is, that you're bringing in extra content, like you also said, bringing in experts from the field that you're trying to create the culture in. I think my question for you is, what is your recommended ratio of marketing that is specifically for a product you're trying to push versus fun content? Do you like a 1-to-4 ratio? Do you like a 1-to-5 ratio? What's your golden rule here?
That's such a great question. So it's actually, the way that I see it is 20%. So you want to do 20%. This is like a content strategy. You do 20% conversation, 20% credibility. So credibility meaning every time someone says something nice about your music, you post that. 20% educational. Then you want to do, or like educational meaning like you're educating about the song. You're not necessarily saying like, here's how to sing my song, and then you want to do 20%. We covered community, conversation starters. The other 20% is obviously going to be conversion, which is converting people into stream listeners or selling them. So think of the last conversion as like a CTA, like a call to action. That's going to be the one that you're always driving people towards something. But when you split it up like this, you're creating a deeper connection with your audience because you're sharing different sides, not necessarily of your whole life, but you're sharing different sides of your music career.
And I think it's really interesting, and maybe we can talk about this for a moment before we hit our number 3, which is social media and e-commerce that you recommended at the beginning. Yeah. The entire paradigm and concept of what it means to be an artist that is, to a degree, financially viable has really changed. And I think we're still sort of stuck in the early 21st and 20th century idea of what it means to be an artist, that, okay, I'm going to go and all I need to focus on is the music. And if I just get this song, just get this album, and I'm going to spend 8 years and it's every note and like the mixing and the master, you can hear everything. And it's my artistic vision. And then you release it and like 5 people listen to it. And what you're describing is really the holistic approach of what it means to be an artist now, and it requires a lot more work, like you said, than just the music. I always like to say music business. It's 50-50, if not 40-60, if not 30-70. Like however much time you're putting into that music, anticipate 2 to 3 times more effort and time and energy going into promoting it. Would you say that's accurate, or would you adjust any numbers there?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. The business side is not something that you can just pretty much what is it, like get rid of. Like, this is the most important part of your business, because similar to what you just said, it's, if your music isn't generating any revenue, then it's just a glorified hobby. So you got to keep it afloat.
And I think within that, I think it's important to delineate that for some people, that is the joy. The joy is the process of making music and releasing music, and that's fine. That's what we're not knocking. This podcast is not about saying, oh, you have to monetize your music, or you're not worthwhile as an artist unless you're monetizing and actively monetizing music. That's not at all the point. The point is to say, okay, if you want to monetize your music, if you want to take your career to the next level, if you want to do what one might call hacking fame, and I believe there's a company called Fame Hackers that can help you do that. That there's these options out there for you. But I myself know several artists who do not. I'm trying to say do not and don't at the same time, and it came out as don't. They don't want to do all this extra stuff. Well, and again, I'm calling it extra stuff, extra from a purely artistic perspective. They don't want to do this. So what would your advice be for someone who doesn't want to do anything to engage with fans, create a community? What's one thing for that artist to do that's not going to be a big time suck and is not going to be heavy lifting or a long-term commitment for engaging? What's the one thing you would recommend doing for an artist like that?
I think Reels or TikTok.
Huh?
Yeah, because it's literally like 9 to 15 second clips. You want to keep them short, otherwise it's harder to get exposure. But yeah, I mean, that's like the least committing thing, and it'll definitely move the needle, especially if you are like using proper strategies. Then your TikToks and your Reels can actually take your music by itself. Like, you can get so much more exposure, and you don't have to go and build a business or anything like that. So if you strictly just want exposure, TikTok or Reels.
Let's talk about your third point for what you recommended for artists, which was social media and e-commerce. I understand the social media, and I feel like we've covered that pretty thoroughly up until now. Can you talk a little bit about the e-commerce?
So e-commerce is basically like having the ability to sell anything online. What we've seen for the longest time is that people want to sell merch. Every time you think of like, oh, what can I sell? It's t-shirts, right? It's the first thing that pops up. But the thing is, when you're selling only t-shirts, now you have to also compete with like the David Dobrik's of the world and Justin Bieber and like all the other celebrities that have
Gap
merch
and
lines.
Hollister.
Yeah, and on top of
like
that,
the people on the beach that are like making shirts with characters of your face, and like the people in the mall, if we still go to malls. I mean, like, there's a lot of t-shirts out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. And then you also have to think about the fact that a lot of people are going the sustainable route and they want quality clothing, so it creates this whole new scenario, because also when you get quality clothing, you can't really just do print on demand. You have to have a budget for that. So what happens is when you just like pull back from the mentality that all you can do is sell shirts, and actually think about, like you said, there's a lot of room for creativity in this one. What I've helped people do is figure out pretty much what their audience is into, and then we'll apply e-commerce tactics to it. So for example, if we know that I worked with an artist that he was all about dark academia. So we know that his fans like, like little Greek statues and they like books and stuff like that. So we built a system where the very first step into his world is a free gift. And this is free. It's pretty much a free plus shipping strategy, which you would send it for free. They just cover shipping. So the very first step into his world, he's giving away Greek little mini statues that someone that's into dark academia is actually going to enjoy that. And then it's just like e-commerce in general. It's not necessarily just sticking to that. Some people go into, and like the most impressive results that you mentioned in the beginning, those people are the people that actually go into starting like coaching programs, or they want to teach other people how to sing or how to produce music. So it really just depends on how can you monetize the skills that you have and also the things that you can provide that your audience might want.
Complete tangent. Just out of curiosity, what is dark academia?
So dark academia, it's this trend that happened through TikTok, and it's pretty much like, it's very much, I can't remember the name of the author, but there's this author that he kept bringing up. It was like Peter Tolstoy or something like that. And it's very like, kind of like a dark aesthetic. So they love books, they love literature, they love fine arts, they love everything that has to do with like academics. But then it's pretty much like a thirst for knowledge. But then the dark component is that they have a little bit of I don't want to say goth because it's not goth. It's not goth at all. But it's kind of like, it reminds me of like what the scene kids used to be back when I was growing up. I don't know if you remember the scene era.
No, but okay, so it's a culture out. I'm new to this, so it's a culture that's out there where there's a style of dressing that's like a little dark, a little gothy, but it's like for people who are very interested in academics as well.
Yeah. Like they love fine arts. Like they're very intelligent people.
Huh.
Yeah.
Super cool.
It's like Harry Potter vibes. Like
okay. Okay. I'm tracking. That's interesting. Cool. So, after someone's created a movement, they've established social presence, they're engaging with their fans, they're creating social media, they're monetizing through creative ways. And like the example you gave, it's all about getting that first yes from someone. So the first yes of the example for this artist is that the fan is paying the cover shipping. Yeah. And I think they've done a study that after someone buys something from, so let's say, take a brand, any brand. If someone buys something from that brand, they are, I believe, in the area of 60% more likely to buy from that brand again after they've had a monetary transaction. So you're setting up a low point of entry to start creating that snowball effect of engagement, and then also creating the monetizing relationship between fan, or we could call it super fan, and artist.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is super fascinating. How do people, or how should artists try and sustain this over the long period? Because this is a lot of work. This is no joke. If anyone out there's tried to post to social media every day, I mean, you have to put time in. You can't just snap a photo of like the carpet. I mean, I'm sure there's some Twitter account somewhere that's like carpet pics, and they're like they're killing it in the carpet picture industry.
Right.
But like you can't just take a photo of the carpet every day and be like, okay, this is it. You know, you need video content, you need static photo content, you need live content, peeks behind the curtains. It's a lot of work. So what is your recommendation for someone who's trying to get into this? And second part of the question, do you feel that this is truly a viable monetary career path for people who want to invest the time?
Yes, two good questions. So the first part is, in the beginning, you kind of have to wear all the hats, and then as you start bringing revenue, you start delegating the tasks. But the thing is that a lot of the times we try to delegate right off the bat, and what happens is we either don't have money or we don't know how to properly delegate because we haven't figured out a formula that works for you, because everyone has a different formula. Now, when it comes down to, is it like a sustainable career path down the road? If you really think about it, this is what digital entrepreneurs have been doing. They are, instead of creating music, they're actually running, like digital marketers. What they do is they build a similar structure, and then instead of creating music, they actually go out and create a whole company. So it's probably equal, if not one of them is more stressful than the other. I don't know which side, but they're both a lot of work. So it just depends on how you manage your time and how you focus on the income producing activities so that everything else that doesn't matter. Like one of the things in social media is people try to spread out too thin, or like be everywhere at once, and then they spread themselves out too thin. Just focus on one platform. And like I said, a reel, like reels takes 15 seconds a day. If you want to put a caption and everything, maybe 10 minutes tops. But if you start doing the things like that actually are going to move the needle forward for you and pretty much scrap everything else until you have a team, then that's what's going to help you. And the second component was pretty much, just do it all yourself at first and then delegate when it's necessary.
So let's talk a little bit about delegating, because artists coming into this, especially for younger artists who have not done any business schooling or read any business books, the prospect of even understanding the concept of systems is going to be a bit of a leap. So are there any business books that you personally recommend that artists read to get a head start on this and to change their perspective and thinking so they can recognize the systems that they have and then start to iterate and improve on them?
Yeah, the systems business book that comes to mind. I think the books that I've read though are more in like the marketing world. So I've read like Consultant Next Door, which is absolutely amazing. I read all of Russell Brunson's books, which if you guys haven't checked them out, those books are amazing. I've also read Tanner Chittister's Infinite Income, and they all kind of talk about business in the digital marketing world. So it's very similar structure. Excuse me, it's very similar structure. It's just we're applying music into the equation. And when you think about like Russell Brunson, for example, he's all about ClickFunnels. I don't know if you're familiar with ClickFunnels, but that's one of the strategies, right? You want to make sure that you figure out how to create your own, not necessarily website, because that's another place where a lot of people miss the mark. They'll create a website or a Shopify store, and that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to convert into sales. So it's really, really getting really good at understanding the buyer's journey, which you can Google that and a bunch of images will pop up. Understanding the customer's journey, and then understanding how to implement your products and your services and your offers inside of that.
The one book I would add to that list to recommend is Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Vern. I think that's how it's said. It provides a pathway to not the marketing side of things, but in terms of understanding, creating a brand purpose, brand values, and then what it looks like to actually scale and think about systems.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there's another good one too. The Lean Entrepreneur, I think it was called.
Ooh, Lean Startup.
Lean Startup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, that is a good one too, for sure. So maybe tell us a little bit about what services and how you guys help artists over at Fame Hackers.
So basically what we do is we help artists pretty much create the whole system that we talked about. Here's a secret little nugget. So Fame and Fame Hackers actually stands for the 4 pillars that we take people through. And if you actually apply this by yourself too, like it'll work. So it's basically foundation is number 1. So understanding the right foundation, having the right systems in place and stuff like that. Audience, understanding your audience, attracting your audience, knowing who they are, and figuring out ways to actually bring them in. M stands for monetization. So how can we actually create offers that are going to sell? And then E stands for exposure. So then that's when you focus on pretty much, social media, podcast, media, PR, all that. So, and that's pretty much what we've been talking about this whole time. It's like those pillars. So as long as you guys do those 4 things, you're going to be in a really sweet spot. And then where we come in, the way that Fame Hackers fits in the market essentially is you have an artist that's making music, and then they need marketing. We all know that they need marketing for exposure. So instead of jumping straight into marketing, we fit right there in the middle, so we can actually help you generate a lot of revenue so that then you can turn it into marketing ad spend.
Fascinating. And for people who want to learn more, famehackers.com. So, Isabella, we mentioned at the beginning that you actually started working under the umbrella of Sony,
Yeah,
one of the labels for Sony. How did you get into that gig? Did you go to school for music business?
not
What
at all.
brought you into this industry?
So I have such a unique story, but the moral of the story is to pretty much be resourceful. So the way that I started was after college, I couldn't get a job anywhere, and I knew that I wanted to be in music, and I was in Florida at the time. So
Sorry,
music industry.
what did you major in college?
I majored in food and nutrition science,
Huh.
like completely different.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I was pre med, and then switching to I decided I wanted to be a private chef after that. So I was like, okay, let me switch into the closest thing, food and nutrition science. So then I can't get a job anywhere after college. I'm not getting hired. The restaurants are like, you're either too experienced or not experienced enough. Such a catch 22. And then finally I just said I'm just gonna do my own thing. So I started selling like sauces and meals and like Facebook groups. And this is where I started pretty much doing social media marketing without knowing what social media marketing was all about. So I started getting some traction for clients, and somehow a family in Beverly Hills found me in one of those groups, and it was like 3 months of like consistent effort. And then yeah, they found me, and then I had a phone interview. Then I had 2 weeks to pack up and become their live-in private chef in Beverly Hills. So I knew that once I got to LA, I just needed to get to LA. That was my thing. As soon as I get there, I can figure out how to join the music industry. And that's exactly what I did. First day that I landed, I'm on Facebook. I'm going to all the networking events. Like back then, people would actually put events on Facebook. So I would be like, what's happening in LA? And I showed up. Like I moved there, I think it was like Oscars weekend. And I just went to a bunch of like Oscars parties, and I just started like networking with people, and one thing led to another. And also Craigslist in LA is like so different than anywhere else. It's like all industry like things. It's like, we need actors, we need people in the studio. Like it's so industry, it's so LA. So I just did all of those. I went in the groups, I went on Craigslist, and then I just networked like crazy. And eventually I met people that owned a label, Trend F, and then I ended up working with them. So yeah, it was just one of those things of it was just like crazy connections.
That's a wild journey. I've been really fascinated lately to understand what people go to school for and then what they end up doing, and how so often it is just, it completely, and very successful people have very successful careers like yourself in these verticals where you learn skills through your journey to get there. Like you said, if you hadn't been not hired as a chef, you would never have gone on those Facebook groups, understood the implications of the marketing, and then when it comes time to make Fame Hackers, that is a wild, wild journey.
Yeah.
Isabella, is there anything that we did not talk about today that you think we should talk about?
I think one word of advice and one word of wisdom is this is a mistake that I see a lot of artists make, and it's actually two. The first mistake that I see a lot of artists make is that they think that their music is for everyone. So if we can actually hone in on who this ideal person is, and don't just think about it like if you Google ideal fan avatar or ideal client avatar, a lot of the times people will tell you to like list out age and demographic and where they're from. But what's more important is to actually get to know their pain points and their pleasure points. And what that means is what are they currently actively trying to walk away from, and what are they currently trying to walk towards to. And when you think about like, some older celebrities, for example, like 50 Cent, get rich or die trying. So his pain point is that he's calling out all the people that are in hustle culture trying to get rich. And then the pleasure point, meaning that once you achieve wealth, you have the cars, the money, the clothes, everything like that. So I think that's one really big thing that if you guys can get really good at that, that will move the needle for artists. And the second part is don't jump into paid ads too soon, because $200 on ad spend is not really going to do much. And if you're not generating revenue back, then it's not really a smart decision to put money into something that's not creating money back. So when you get into paid marketing, you should already have a well-oiled system so you can make more money back, so you can because if you don't do that part, what happens is you have to save up every single time. You have to save up and take from other sources, and then it's not consistent. It breaks. People just run out of money. They have to pay for other things. So for consistent effort, just build your organic traction first and then jump into paid ads.
So what I'm hearing you say is that especially for the last part, is that your word of wisdom is for people to make sure that their systems are fully functioning and generating revenue through purely organic traction before throwing money into ad dollars. Because like you said, the $200 in ad spend, it goes by in a flash.
Yeah.
It runs through. So words of wisdom from Isabella. Make sure you do a lot of business research. Make sure you build an avatar of your ideal customer, including pain points and pleasure points. And then make sure your system is well-oiled and generating revenue before investing in the ad dollars. Isabella, any final words before we call it a day?
I think we covered a lot, Dan. Thank you so much for having me here, and hopefully this was helpful to everyone listening. And, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's at Isword, so IZZWORD.
Fantastic. And you can also find out more at famehackers.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the show. See you guys next time.